It began at dawn in the rugged highlands of Khyber province. The terrain was unforgiving, razor-sharp ridges, narrow passes, and cliffs that fell away into shadowy ravines. For the Rangers, it was supposed to be a simple reconnaissance operation, confirm enemy movement, extract, and regroup. But things rarely stay simple in war. As the team navigated a narrow valley, a sudden eruption of gunfire tore through the silence. Ambush. Insurgents, more than 4 dozen of them, poured in from hidden caves and elevated ridges, cutting off both ends of the valley. It was a textbook kill zone trap. The Rangers were pinned down behind a cluster of boulders, taking fire from every angle. Sergeant Mason, the team leader, immediately radioed command. "We've got multiple contacts. At least 40, no, 50 fighters. We're surrounded. We need Overwatch support now." Static answered him. The cliffs were blocking their signal. Things were deteriorating fast. The Rangers fired back, but their line of sight was limited. The enemy had height advantage, numbers, and full control of the terrain. Mason knew the truth. If help didn't arrive soon, his men would be wiped out. A young ranger, Private Dalton, crouched behind a rock, breathing hard. "Where's our support? Anyone hearing us?" he shouted. No response. Insurgent fire intensified. Dust and rock fragments sprayed over the Rangers as bullets shredded their cover. The team medic was struck in the shoulder. 2 others were grazed. Fear crept in. Not fear of death, but fear of being forgotten in a place where no rescue could reach them. But then, something unexpected happened. A distant voice broke through the static in Mason's headset, calm, composed, and unmistakably female. "Ranger 1, this is Valkyrie. I've got your signal. I have eyes on your position. Hold your ground." Mason blinked. "Valkyrie? Never heard that call sign. Where the hell are you?" 1,200 meters north. Wind steady from the west. First shot in 3 seconds. The Rangers exchanged confused glances. Whoever she wasn't standard support. Not airborne, not local, and definitely not on their initial roster. But before Mason could ask again, crack! A single echoing rifle shot sliced through the valley. A second later, one of the insurgent commanders at the ridge collapsed instantly. Private Dalton looked up in disbelief. "Whoever that is, she just nailed a headshot from over a kilometer away." Another shot. Another enemy down. And another. The attackers paused, confused, as their organized assault began to crumble as they realized someone unseen was picking them off with impossible accuracy. Mason steadied his radio. "Valkyrie, keep talking to me. Rangers are pinned. We need a path out." "Copy. You'll have one. Keep low and don't expose yourselves. Marking the first exit window in 30 seconds. Her voice never wavered. No panic, no tension. Only calm determination, like someone who had done this 100 times before. The Rangers felt hope for the first time since the ambush, but Mason still had questions. Who was she? How was she even here? And how did she get into position so fast? Meanwhile, on the North Ridge, unseen by anyone, the lone sniper adjusted her scope, breathing in steady, controlled rhythms. Her ghillie suit blended seamlessly into the mountain shrub. Her rifle, an elite long-range precision weapon reserved only for Tier 1 operators, rested perfectly aligned on her tripod. Her expression remained cold, focused. Every calculation, wind, elevation drop, humidity, was processed instantly. She wasn't just a sniper, she was one of the best, and the men she was saving wouldn't know her real name for a long, long time.
The valley was still roaring with gunfire, but the Rangers felt something shift, an unspoken confidence spreading through the men. The mysterious sniper, Valkyrie, was turning the tide, shot by shot. Sergeant Mason peeked carefully from behind a rock to assess the situation. The insurgents, who had been advancing with bold confidence, were now dropping back, confused and terrified. They didn't know who was hitting them or from where. And that was exactly how she wanted it. The sniper's POV, The hunt continues. On the north ridge, Valkyrie slowed her breathing until her heartbeat synced with the rhythm she needed. One beat, one micro-adjustment on the scope, one silent exhale. She tracked a fighter who was signaling orders with frantic hand gestures. He was smart, using cover, changing position fast, making himself a difficult target, but not difficult enough. Crack. He dropped mid-sprint, falling face first into the sand. Valkyrie didn't even watch him fall. She was already scanning for the next threat, her rifle shifting with fluid precision. To her, this wasn't chaos. It was calculation. A battlefield she controlled from a mile away. Back with the Rangers. Private Dalton looked up from his cover again. "Sergeant, she's clearing them out. She's really clearing them out." Mason nodded, still gripping his rifle. "Yeah, but don't get sloppy. We don't know how long she can keep covering us." Their radio crackled again. "Ranger 1, this is Valkyrie. I'm opening you a corridor on the west side. Do not move until I call it." "Copy," Mason replied. "We're standing by." But he still couldn't shake the question burning in his mind. Who sent her? Why wasn't her name on any support briefing? And why was someone that skilled operating alone? The enemy realizes the hidden threat. One insurgent commander, more experienced than the rest, pointed toward the ridge where Valkyrie was positioned. He barked orders and several fighters shifted to flank her. Mason saw it immediately. "Valkyrie, be advised. We've got enemy movement heading toward the north ridge. They're going after your position." There was a long pause. Valkyrie finally replied, "They won't reach me." Then radio silence. Dalton raised an eyebrow. "She sounds awfully confident." Mason didn't respond, but deep down, he believed her. Valkyrie adjusts. On the ridge, Valkyrie switched from prone to a crouched kneeling position. Her pupils sharpened as she spotted the fighters climbing toward her, attempting to use the rocky slope as cover. They thought she was vulnerable. They were wrong. She switched rifles, pulling out a shorter suppressed weapon from her pack, not for sniping, for close engagements. This wasn't her first time being hunted. She moved silently along the ridge, each step deliberate. When the first insurgent crested the rocks, she was already behind him. A swift stripe to the throat, silent, efficient. Another fighter approached from the right. She swept his leg, disarmed him, and finished the fight before he could shout. There was no hesitation, no wasted motion. She worked like someone trained far beyond conventional standards, someone who had survived missions most soldiers only heard rumors about. Valkyrie wasn't just covering the Rangers. She was running a one-woman war. The Rangers begin to advance. "Valkyrie, this is Ranger 1. We've lost visual. What's your status?" Static. Then her voice returned, untouched by stress. "Clear. Corridor is open. Move now." Mason motioned to his team. "Rangers, on your feet. West corridor, move in Paris." The men sprinted between rocks, staying low, trusting her guidance. Each time an insurgent attempted to ambush them, crack, another perfectly timed sniper shot took him out. It felt impossible. Every shot lined up with their movements. Every threat was eliminated the moment it became fatal. Private Dalton finally muttered the question they were all thinking. "Who the hell is she?" No one answered. The mysterious connection. As they pushed deeper toward the valley exit, Mason's radio crackled again. "Ranger 1, I count 8 fighters regrouping near the boulder shelf. They're setting up machine guns. I'm taking the gunners first." She wasn't just spotting them. She was inside the enemy's strategy, predicting movements like she'd studied them for years. Mason froze mid-run. Only one type of operator talked like that. Only one type had that level of awareness. His eyes widened. "Valkyrie, are you—" But she cut him off. "Focus on your men, Sergeant." Her tone wasn't rude. It was protective and strangely familiar, though Mason couldn't place why. The shots that shook the valley. Up on the ridge, Valkyrie restabilized her rifle and lined up the enemy machine gunner. No wind, perfect elevation, one controlled breath. Crack. The gunner fell. Before the others could react, she chambered another round. Crack. A second gunner collapsed instantly. 3 fighters rushed to take cover behind a rock outcrop. But from her angle, there was no cover. Crack. 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 Every shot found its target. Below, the Rangers watched the assault collapse into chaos. The enemy force, once organized and overpowering, was now scattering in fear, completely unaware where the death was coming from. Dalton shook his head slowly. That's not normal sniping. That's something else. Mason exhaled. Yeah, she's elite. Then softly, beyond elite. Something told him she wasn't on their support briefing because she wasn't supposed to exist. The escape route is almost clear. After 15 grueling minutes of pushing through enemy terrain, Mason saw their exit ridge ahead. They were close, only a few hundred meters. But then he spotted movement. Insurgents regrouping for one final push, preparing to cut them off. Mason raised his rifle. Dalton positioned behind a boulder. 2 more Rangers dropped to their knees, ready to fire. But Valkyrie came over the radio again. Ranger 1, stay down. Mason trusted her now. He raised his fist. Hold fire. Everyone down. The Rangers flattened themselves against the ground. A few seconds passed. Silence. Then, crack! One enemy fell. Crack. Another. Crack, crack, crack. 5 more dropped in rapid succession. The valley fell silent except for the echo of a rifle that seemed to fire with the precision of a machine. Valkyrie's voice returned. Exit is clear. Move fast. The Rangers sprinted out of the kill zone, finally reaching a place where the terrain widened in the safety. They had survived the impossible. Thanks to her. But the mystery of who she truly was about to deepen in ways they didn't expect.
As the Rangers finally reached the ridge overlooking the valley, a wave of relief washed over the battered men. For the first time in hours, no bullets chased them. No enemy fighters closed in. No explosions shook the ground beneath their boots. All they felt was the cold wind brushing their faces and the crushing exhaustion of survival. But the greatest weight, the one pressing hardest on Sergeant Mason, was the mystery shadowing them since the moment the first shot had cracked through the chaos. Valkyrie. Whoever she really was. The team slowed their pace, each man catching his breath and checking their gear. Mason scanned behind them, expecting to see a silhouette moving gracefully across the ridge, but there was nothing. She had disappeared back into the vast landscape like a ghost. Private Dalton wiped sweat from his brow and glanced around. Think she'll rendezvous with us? Mason wasn't sure. If she wants to be found, he said, she'll find us. The quiet didn't last long. The radio crackled again, but this time the interference was heavier, like someone fighting to maintain a signal. Ranger 1, reposition. Stay low. Her voice faded in and out. Mason grabbed the radio. Valkyrie, repeat. Your signal is breaking up. Static hissed. Then, enemy reinforcements. Drones inbound. They're not retreating. Dalton gulped. She's still watching us? Mason nodded. If she was warning them, she was still nearby, and still protecting them. That only raised more questions. Snipers didn't linger unless they had a mission far bigger than assisting a pinned-down Ranger team. Before he could think further, the valley below lit up with movement. Small metallic glints, too quick, too sharp, caught Mason's eye. Drones, he growled. Small attack models. Dalton's voice cracked. Are we in their radius? Mason didn't answer.
The drones buzzed closer, shifting into formation. These weren't recon units. They were armed, fast, lethal. Then Valkyrie's voice cut through the radio crystal clear. "Ranger 1, get off that ridge now!" Mason didn't hesitate. "Move!" The squad jumped down from the ridge just as the first drone unleashed a spray of fire across the rocks where they had stood seconds before. Dust exploded into the air as stone shattered. The men landed hard, tumbling into cover. Dalton shouted, "We're pinned! They'll carve us apart!" But then, from far above, a single shot cracked. Not from the valley, not from behind. From above them. Mason looked up in disbelief. She wasn't on the ridge. She was scaling the cliffside, perched on a narrow outcropping where almost no human should be able to balance. From that impossible angle, she fired again. Crack! A drone spun out of the sky. Dalton's jaw dropped. That's not possible. She hit a moving drone? But she wasn't finished. Crack! Another drone exploded. Crack! A third spiraled downward. Within seconds, the entire swarm was reduced to smoking metal scattered across the valley floor. Silence settled over the terrain. Dalton whispered, "I've never seen anything like that." Mason's hands tightened around his rifle. He had, once, years ago, on a classified op where a sniper saved an entire Delta squad from an ambush by hitting thermal targets through sandstorms. The operator's name had been erased, struck from the official roster. Rumors had circled, black ops, deep programs, operators who existed only in whispers. His chest tightened. "Valkyrie, who are you really?" Before he could say more, her voice returned. "Ranger 1, new contact. Vehicles approaching from the east, heavily armed. You need to reposition to the canyon." "We don't have visuals." "You will." A half-second later, a distant explosion rocked the valley. Smoke rose from behind the hills, and then, like dark silhouettes emerging from a nightmare, armored trucks rolled into view. Dalton cursed. "They brought half an army." Mason's pulse quickened. "We won't outrun those." Valkyrie answered calmly. "You don't need to. I'll stall them." "Negative," Mason shot back instantly. "There are too many. You'll be overrun." Another pause. "I've handled worse." Dalton shouted toward the radio, "You can't take on vehicles alone." Her response was chillingly composed. "You're not hearing me, Rangers. This isn't your fight anymore. Move to the canyon. That's an order." Mason's entire body froze. She had said that with command authority, not support, not suggestion, an order. Dalton turned to him slowly. "Sergeant, who has the authority to order a ranger squad to retreat?" There was only one answer. Only one group whose clearance outranked Rangers, Delta, Force Recon, and most of Special Operations Command. Black tier units. Ghost operators. People who didn't officially exist but outranked everyone. Mason swallowed hard. Someone very, very high up. In the distance, Valkyrie's rifle thundered again. A truck veered off the road. Another. And another. But it wasn't enough. There were too many. Mason pushed his team forward. "Move! Canyon route! Go!" They sprinted, hearts pounding, legs burning. Behind them, explosions shook the valley as enemy trucks closed in on Valkyrie's position. Dalton turned back one last time. "She can't hold them alone." Mason didn't reply. He knew she shouldn't be able to. No one should. But she was fighting like not a normal sniper.
She moved like someone trained to defy the odds, programmed to slip between death and survival like it was instinct. As they reached the canyon entrance, Mason's radio crackled again. "Ranger 1." Valkyrie's voice, with thinner now, breathless. "Keep moving. Don't stop." "Valkyrie, what's your status?" Shots echoed, shouts, an explosion, more shots. Then, silence. Mason froze. "Valkyrie! Valkyrie, come in!" Nothing. Dalton's face went pale. "Sergeant, do you think she—" Before he could finish the sentence, an enormous explosion lit up the horizon behind them, turning the ridge into a fireball. The shockwave rolled through the canyon, knocking dust loose from the walls. Mason stared at the flames with wide eyes. If she was up there, if she hadn't moved. Dolphin whispered what none of them wanted to say. "Sergeant, she might be gone." But Mason didn't believe it. Not for a second. Because someone like her, someone with that level of skill, discipline, and instinct didn't die easily. If she had been taken out, he would feel it. No. She was alive. Somewhere. And the truth about who she really was getting closer with every step.
The Rangers moved deeper into the canyon, its towering walls swallowing the last traces of daylight. Their footsteps echoed through the narrow passage as dust drifted from the cliffs above. Every man was silent, not because the threat was gone, but because their minds were still trapped in the explosion that had torn through the ridge behind them. Dalton walked close to Mason, too afraid to voice the question burning in his chest. "Sergeant, do you really think she made it?" Mason didn't answer immediately. He kept scanning the canyon ahead, jaw clenched. Part of leadership meant keeping fear off your face, even when uncertainty gnawed at your gut. But Mason's instincts, honed through years of combat, told him something important. If Valkyrie was gone, he would have felt it. Not her. She's too good, too aware, too trained. She moved before that blast hit. I know it. Dalton nodded, but worry still clouded his eyes. The Rangers had seen miracles today. Shots no human should make, movements no normal soldier could perform. And yet, Mason believed she was more than a soldier. She was something else, something extraordinary. And people like that didn't disappear so easily. As they continued, the radio on Mason's chest crackled faintly, just the whisper of static, almost like someone trying to re-establish contact. Everyone froze. Mason tapped the device. "Valkyrie, if that's you, signal again." Silence. The men held their breath. Then faint, almost beyond hearing, a soft click came through the channel. Not words, not static, a double-click code. A sniper's signal. Mason's eyes widened. "She's alive." Dalton almost collapsed with relief. "Then where is she?" Mason turned his eyes to the heights above them. The cliffs were jagged, shadowed, perfect for someone skilled enough to move unseen. "Close," Mason said, "watching us, guiding us, same as before." The Rangers pressed forward till the canyon began to open, revealing a small valley ahead. A dry riverbed cut through the ground like a scar. It was quiet. Too quiet. And Mason didn't like it. He raised his fist, stopping the squad instantly. "Dalton, on me. Eyes up." They scanned the valley. No movement, no vehicles, no fighters, only the wind whispering across the sand. Then the radio crackled again, this time with clarity sharp enough to freeze every man in place. "Valkyrie, stop." Valkyrie's voice was raspy, strained, but unmistakably alive. Dalton grabbed Mason's arm. She really made it? Mason leaned into the mic. Valkyrie, what's your position? Her breathing came through heavy. Doesn't matter. You're walking into a trap. Mason's blood ran cold. We're not seeing anything. That's the point. The valley is mined. Trip sensors buried under the sand. They're waiting for you to enter. If you step forward, you die. Dalton's eyes shot down to his boots. You're kidding me. Mason studied the terrain again. No markers, no disturbances, no patterns. Whoever planted the mines had done it with precision. Valkyrie, Mason said, how do we get through? A moment of silence. Then, you don't. Not through the valley. You'll have to take the ridge to the west. Dalton blinked. The ridge? That slope is near vertical. Mason sighed. We've climbed worse. But Valkyrie wasn't done. And Sergeant, you won't be climbing alone. Before Mason could ask what she meant, a figure emerged from the shadows high above them, moving with impossible balance along the rocks. Slim silhouette, sniper rifle slung across her back, dust coating her uniform. Valkyrie. Alive. Dalton let out a loud breath. No way! She made it out of that explosion! She descended toward them from the cliffside, landing effortlessly in the sand. Mason watched her with a mix of disbelief and respect. Her uniform was torn, blood stained her sleeve. But her eyes, sharp, focused, unshakable, burned with purpose. She stepped up to Mason, and for the first time, he saw her face clearly. Young but hardened by experience far beyond her years. You didn't think I'd leave you out here, did ya? She said with a small smirk. Dalton was staring outright. Ma'am, I don't even know what to say. You saved us multiple times. Valkyrie brushed past him. Don't thank me yet. We're not out of this. Mason crossed his arms. You're injured. Nothing that slows me down. She tightened the sling on her sniper rifle. We move west. Now. The Rangers followed her along the narrow ridge that skirted the valley. It was steep, dangerous, and one wrong step would send them tumbling down. But Valkyrie moved with confidence, occasionally pointing out loose stones or hidden cracks for the men to avoid. Dalton whispered to Mason, How does she see these? I barely see the ground in front of me. Mason didn't respond. He was piecing together everything he'd witnessed, every impossible skill she'd shown. Her precision, her resilience, her command authority. He had a theory, but it seemed too unbelievable. After 30 grueling minutes, they finally reached a plateau overlooking a vast stretch of rugged terrain. Just ahead, a dust cloud rolled across the horizon. Vehicles, enemy reinforcements. Mason cursed under his breath. They're sweeping the entire sector. Valkyrie lowered her rifle and assessed the situation. Their search pattern is tight. They know someone survived. They're hunting. Dalton swallowed. What do we do? Valkyrie turned to Mason. There's a secondary evac point 5 kilometers north. You didn't know it because your briefing was incomplete. Mason frowned. And how do you know it? She met his eyes. I wrote the briefing. Dalton's jaw dropped. Wait, you're not support, are you? No, I am the mission. Before they could question her further, the ground trembled slightly. Vehicles. Valkyrie locked her rifle into place. Her voice dropped to a command tone that made every man stand straighter. You're Rangers. You fought hard today. But this next stretch, you won't make it without cover. Cover from what? Dalton asked. She pulled the bolt on her rifle, eyes burning with cold certainty. From 50 fighters, 3 trucks, and a drone swarm moving in fast. Dalton's face went pale. "Ma'am, that's suicide." "It is for anyone else." She moved toward the edge of the plateau, taking a sniper stance so fluid it looked like instinct. Mason stepped forward. "Valkyrie, listen. You've saved us more times than we can count. But you're one person. You can't possibly hold off." She cut him off sharply. "I can, and I will. You all need to live. The mission depends on you getting out." Dalton swallowed. "Mission? What mission? What is she talking about?" Valkyrie didn't look back. She simply spoke one final sentence that struck Mason like a hammer. "I'm not just a sniper, Sergeant. I am Tier 0. Mason's breath caught in his throat. Tier 0. Operators so classified their existence was denied by every branch of command. Specialists trained for impossible missions. Ghosts. Legends. Dalton staggered. Tier 0? That's not real. Valkyrie fired the first shot. Crack! A truck exploded. Crack! A drone fell from the sky. Crack! Another soldier dropped before he even realized he'd been targeted. She wasn't fighting like a sniper anymore. She was fighting like death itself. She turned her head slightly, voice steady. "Rangers, move. Evac point north. I'll hold the line." Mason hesitated, torn between duty and the instinct to stand with her, but her next words left no room for debate. "That's an order." He saluted her. "Come on, Rangers, move." They ran, across the plateau, toward the extraction point, hearts pounding as the sounds of battle thundered behind them. Valkyrie's rifle echoed across the valley, each shot a reminder of the impossible force covering their escape. Dalton glanced back one last time. She was still standing, still firing, still protecting them alone. Mason turned and shouted, "Don't slow down. She's buying us time." As they neared the extraction zone, the roar of helicopters